Dope. That's my alias. Anyhow, it's actually John Smith. Everybody thinks his name.
I'm Dave Smith, by the way.
Yeah, Dave. How are you? So, no, I did not marry Pocahontas. So get that out of the way. Anyhow, we actually discussed a piece of software that someone in our group was using. I won't take no chain names like that. So we talked about a lot of the features that the program had. One of the features that it didn't have though was like integration back into something like ConnectWise. So having one platform. I mean, I was reading through the brochure that they handed me on the way in. Now I realize that you guys have this too. So if you integrate with ConnectWise and you can do the stuff on this list, then that there's actually more value than what you have.
That's the reason why it's okay to mention the competitor's name so we know who we're replacing.
So the one that we talked about was called AirWatch. Sorry.
I know.
But anyhow, well, we kind of had some of the same discussions that everybody else has had. One of those was separating personal data from business data. Obviously, when you bring your own device, you're going to take pictures with. I got pictures of family and friends on my phone, but I also have customer credit card information on my phone, and so there's this balance of protecting company data, but you don't want to intrude on somebody's private life, and so I think it goes back to one, the SLA and finding out what level of security the end user and the client themselves are okay with, and then building your policies around that. And something that this software allows us to do is it allows us to manage what type of applications are okay on a phone, which features can be enabled. And I think one of the huge values in a software platform like AirWatch or like LabTech. Sorry. I think one of the huge advantages, or one of the big value centers for us anyways, is configuration. Because there's not really a good tool out there that allows you to manage all these different platforms. And the big reason for that is because the platforms themselves haven't really opened themselves to be managed in the way that we traditionally manage laptops, computers, and servers. And when we talk about managing somebody's desktop unit, I have TeamViewer on my phone, and I can access a unit no matter where I am, what's going on. And I can gain remote desktop access and play with the unit like I'm sitting right there in front of it. There's not really a good way to do that with your phones and your tablets because a lot of the vendors who have created these devices have locked those devices down. So having an application where you configure everything on in a web portal or something like that, and you say, we're going to allow this software to run, we're going to go ahead and set up wireless access keys. I mean, how many of your customers use wireless access keys? Just show of hands. Do you guys have wireless networks? And you hire a new employee, you bring them in, first thing you say, well, what's the password to the wireless network? And you read them this long password, they write it down somewhere so that they never have to ask you again, and 2 months later you find out that they're horrible people doing something wrong on your network, and you fire them. Well, then you have to change your password, and then you have to give everybody else that you haven't fired the new password, and it becomes this nightmare that you have to continuously manage. And then when you get into HIPAA compliance and things like that, even if you don't fire anybody every 90 days, you have to change it. So it becomes a huge management nightmare. But using a platform like this, I think the real value, or one of the big value propositions that we have, is we can push one configuration out that has all those passwords built in, has their email already set up. It's not something that we have to log in and configure on their phone. They just push out one config file, and their phone's prepared and ready for them to use. And I think that that's a huge value proposition, especially on the support side, because it saves us time and money. One of the questions that I heard earlier was, why would I do this? Why would I engage in supporting phones? Because if you're supporting phones, it turns into this management nightmare, because This person has an iPhone, this person has Android, this person's using Android with the at-home home screen, so everything's, you know, just completely different from the way everybody else uses their phone. And there's 100,000 different ways to configure things, and how do you support that and do it efficiently? I think that a program like this that allows you to create one configuration for the entire network, maybe you have to create some separate differences for each individual user, but then you take that one configuration, you can push it to an iPhone, you can push it to an Android phone, push it to a Windows phone and a BlackBerry, and you do it one configuration that changes those settings no matter what platform you're using, and the application on the receiving side receives this data of how it's supposed to set up, and it knows, hey, I'm on a BlackBerry, so that means I need to put these settings in on this BlackBerry to match that configuration. And then when you're done, all you're doing is you're going back and you're going to delete the email account. You're going to delete the Salesforce application that's built in and wipe the data that was associated with that application, but leaving all of the customer data intact. I think that that creates a really nice medium point for our end users who have the phones to feel comfortable with what we're doing, but at the same time, it gives us the control that we can feel comfortable that the data that we're storing on those phones is protected.
So it's essentially application-based.
Exactly, because that's where your data is stored anyway.
Right. I've heard that before. That's called the multi-ray right there. That he brings to the table sometimes. So good, good. Is that it? Any questions on that?